welcome to the DMF. I am your host, Justin Yance, and this is episode 79. And this is the wrestling show. And I'm going to talk about the lead up to WrestleMania. I'm going to talk about a little interesting fact I found out about Roman Reigns. I'm going to talk about AEW, the go-home shows for Raw and SmackDown for WrestleMania, and I'm going to talk about a Raw moment. So stay tuned. So let's talk about the build-up to WrestleMania 37. And yes, I am going to say WrestleMania 37 because according to WWE, everything is just WrestleMania. I'm sorry, it's WrestleMania 37. How else are we supposed to distinguish between the other ones if we're not going to put a number to it? It's little things like this that just frustrate me with this company. But with that being said, let's run down the card. So we have AJ Styles and Omos versus The New Day. That should be an interesting match, and that's for the Raw Tag Team titles. We've got the Raw Women's match for the Gauntlet, which will lead to Shayna Baszler versus Nia Jax. I could care less about that match. I don't think anyone else cares. Braun Strowman versus Shane McMahon, Steel Cage. I'm kind of excited for that match. That should be pretty good. Bad Bunny and Damian Priest versus The Miz and John Morrison. That could be good, you know? We'll have to see Seth Rollins over versus Cesaro. It'll be kind of interesting to see if Seth Rollins and Cesaro get time, but I think it should be an interesting match. So I'm interested to see where that is. And we found out that Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks will headline night one, and that should be good. I've got to believe Bianca Belair is getting the win, but I don't know. We'll have to see. Drew McIntyre versus Lashley. I don't know. I kind of think this is going to be the crowning moment for Drew McIntyre, but I could be wrong. I'm not sure exactly what they're going to do with that. But that's supposed to be the opening match, so that should be an interesting match. Night 2. Let's talk about Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn. We've seen them wrestle I don't know how many times. It's a different dynamic here because now we have Owens as the face and Zayn as the heel. So I guess that's kind of going to be interesting, and Logan Paul will be there. We'll have to see. Riddle versus Sheamus. I'm not sure. You know, I've got to believe maybe Riddle retains. Apollo versus Big E in a Nigerian drum fight. I don't know what that is. It could go either way. Asuka versus Rhea Ripley for the Raw Women's Championship. That should be an interesting match. I've got to believe Asuka's losing. The Fiend versus Randy Orton. The Fiend needs to get his win back. I don't know how else to book it. Edge versus Daniel Bryan versus Roman Reigns. I think it's time to take the title off of Roman Reigns, but I don't know. They could go either way with any one of these people. You get Daniel Bryan, you send the fans home happy. Edge, I don't know, some of the fans might like him, some might not. You give him that home feel win since it was 10 years ago when he retired, and here he comes back in the main event at WrestleMania. Or you can go with Roman Reigns and keep going with it. I don't know. It should be a good match, though. So those are my predictions for the card. I think it's been a pretty good build-up. Some stuff's been lackluster, but it should be interesting. Interesting to see Almost. I mean, let's see if this guy can do anything. From all intents and purposes, I've heard that he's not very good. One thing that came out today was that Roman Reigns said that it was Vince McMahon's idea to turn him heel. I find that highly unlikely. He never turned John Cena heel. I just find it very hard to believe that he actually went with that. But maybe he's telling the truth. But he never turned Hogan heel when a lot of people wanted to see that. he's never gone for that. So I don't know. I don't know. Could that have been his idea? I don't know. He could be doing posturing. I thought it was really funny in the interview because Roman Reigns said that he wasn't tapping out. He was saying in Morse code to fire up the jet to Paul Heyman. So that was some high comedy and shows why he's a really good heel. And he should have been a heel from the beginning. That he would have been so far along if they had just done what they're doing now. But as always, they're late to the party, but you know what? It's never too late. They did this, and I really like what they've done with Roman Reigns. I like the character. I find it highly unlikely that it was Vince's idea. I think what happened is Roman Reigns said, I want to come back, and I want to come back as a heel, and I want to do something different. And then Vince said, well, why don't we put you with Paul Heyman? He's not doing anything. And then one and one went together, and I think that's how it happened. But this has been the best run of Roman Reigns' career, and I've just enjoyed it tremendously. I just think it has just been a knockout. I think they've knocked it out of the park with this. I gotta be honest with you, I'm getting a little sick of the Jey Uso thing, but you know what? It's been good. Hopefully, after WrestleMania, they can give him a couple more guys so that it's not just the same people, but we'll have to see. But yeah, that's what I've got to say about that. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about AEW. Let's talk about AEW. And I think the big highlight of this show was Mike Tyson coming out and saving Chris Jericho from the Pinnacle. That was the big thing. And I don't know. It doesn't have the big impact that it did when Mike Tyson was in his prime and he was having the scuffle with Steve Austin. But it's a nice little moment. But yeah, I don't know. The other thing I liked is Jericho and the Inner Circle. He cut a promo on all of Pinnacle. And it was really well laid out, and he ran down them hard. So that was something. The other thing that happened was we had the Bucks and Moxley versus Omega and the Good Brothers, which ended with the Young Bucks turning heel, and the Good Brothers hitting the Magic Killer and putting Omega over Moxley, and that was the pinfall. And we had Kingston coming out, but they took care of him. And they all did they were going to do the Too Sweet sign, but they hugged instead. So the Elite is back together in full force, and that should be good stuff. Darby Allin versus J.D. Drake. They had a nice little match. Darby Allin won. Those are the main things that happened. You had Tay Conti beating the Bunny. It was a pretty good match. Tay Conti's coming along. But the Bucks and Mox versus Omega and Good Brothers, good match. Not my favorite, but they seem to be building stuff, and it looks like the other big thing that came out was that Jericho said that we're going to get a Blood and Guts match, which will be the War Games, and that is supposed to happen, I think, on May 3rd, May 5th, I believe, is when they're going to do that match. And that should be an interesting match, because that's going to be on TV, and it's going to be blood, and it's going to be guts, so it should be good. I liked that. This is the last week of AEW being opposed by NXT, so it should be interesting to see what the ratings say next week when AEW is all on its own. The Wednesday Night Wars is over. NXT is going to Tuesday, and I think it's the best thing. I don't have to sit there and choose. I can watch all of them, and I'm kind of excited to see what they do. But yeah, it was a pretty good episode of AEW. It wasn't my favorite, and I feel like I said that last week, but it wasn't. It wasn't my favorite. It was a good show, a lot of nice things. It was more of a setup show. Not really a show that is big payoff. But they got, Tyson on there, so that was kind of cool. And that's about all I have to say about AEW. this week. I mean, this really has been a WWE week. So when we come back, I'm going to talk about Raw and SmackDown. So here we go. So let's talk about Raw. Raw was the go-home show for WrestleMania. It's a pretty good Raw. I mean, everything lined up well. I mean, nothing amazing happened, but here were the rundowns. Corbin versus Drew. They had a long match. Drew beat him. Damian Priest has been added to the Bunny, Bad Bunny versus The Miz, and it will now be John Morrison as well. So The Miz and Morrison versus Bad Bunny and Damian Priest. And that will be at WrestleMania. Styles, Rhea, Ripley, and Asuka all lost. And then afterwards, they had the big stare down of Drew McIntyre and Lashley, which should be a pretty good match. I'm excited for that. The SmackDown was mainly promos. SmackDown was a lot of promos. That was the go-home show. Edge cut like the promo of his life. He was in the chair, steel chair, a la Mick Foley, and he just was so much passion, so much rage, saying, "You have no idea what it took for me to get back here, and how hard I worked to get here," and just the passion coming out of him. This is a man who will not be denied his championship. Daniel Bryan cut a great promo, as always. He was fired up, saying that this is my last WrestleMania, then I'm going to go out and I'm going to give it everything I've got. Roman Reigns cut a promo, and he basically said that, that's all nice and good, but you know what? I'm here, and that's all fairy tales, and I'm going to beat all of you. And, he did a great promo, just, really running them all down. He said, Edge said, you lost this? He said, no, I took it from you. Daniel Bryan, you're lucky to be here. He basically said, I'm the guy. I'm the one that runs this, and you're lucky to be here. It was good. It really set up all the different angles, and they really made it look and show that, anybody can win. And I think that's the best way to go into a match of this magnitude, is to really get this, who's going to win. Bianca Belair and Sasha, that should be a really good match. They, they kind of had, I don't know, it didn't really speak to me what they did. But I am excited to see what Bianca Belair and Sasha do. I think they're going to have a great match, especially the fact that they're going to main event. They had the four-way tag match, which was won by Dolph and Bobby Roode. They had a 14-minute match. This was the four-way. It was going to be on Mania, but it wasn't. Dominic and Rey Mysterio were in the match, the Street Profits and Alpha Academy, and it was won by Roode and Ziggler. Kayla interviewed Bianca Belair. I mean, good stuff. Let's see here. What else happened? Sasha cut a nice promo as well. The Andre the Giant Battle Royal. And Jey Uso won. That was 14 minutes. So there you go. They gave it to Jey Uso. Guess it gives more to the power to the head of the table. I thought SmackDown was better than Raw. It was more focused, but good show. So that's the lead into the Mania. And so when we come back, I'm going to talk about a Raw moment. So stay tuned. So let's talk about my Raw moment for this week. and I picked May 1st, 2006. May 1st, 2006. Now, this wasn't a great Raw or anything great about it, but there was one thing that happened on the show, and the Spirit Squad made fun of Joey Styles. And he got mad at Jerry Lawler and kind of pushed him around, and then Jerry Lawler shoved him down. And, he came out, and Jerry Lawler cuts a promo and says, we're sorry, we're just messing around, I apologize. Joey comes out, and he cuts the promo of a lifetime. And this was amazing. He pretty much laid out everything that was wrong with WWE in 2006. He says, 6 months ago, WWE called me. I didn't call them looking for a job. They called me because they embarrassed, once again, Jim Ross. And he said from week after week, he got run down in the difference between professional wrestling and sports entertainment. And he had to be told this and that. And then he said that, he's told deliberately to ignore the moves that are being performed in the ring so he can tell stories. And he said that that's disrespectful to the men and women who come here 365 days a year to apply their craft. This was huge. And then he said, then he tries to, turn it into a heel promo by saying to the fans that, I'm sick of you guys for all buying into it. And he said he's sick of bathroom humor. And he said, I'm sick of our chairman. He mocks God. He mocks God. This was like the night right after McMahon and the McMahons versus Shawn Michaels and God. And it was kind of ridiculous and stupid. There's no other way to say it, but stupid and foolish. So he cuts that promo about it, and he says, they keep telling him that, he doesn't sound like Jim Ross, and he's like the guy that, they fired in the first place. And then he quits. But the way he ran down everything, about everything that was wrong with WWE was amazing. If even, people, like, you had to pop at home because you were so... It was such a truthful statement. And then he brought up ECW, and he said that he did shows solo. He didn't have a color commentator dragging him down. He said it hasn't been done before. It hasn't been done since. It was a good one. And he talks about how, he got bumped from WrestleMania. And he talks about how, then he wasn't good enough to call Backlash. And then he quits. And it's a great moment. And it just showed where WWE was in 2006, and we're still talking about the same stuff because the one thing that hasn't stopped is the chairman has been the same person throughout all these years. So that was 2006, and now we're in 2021, and we're still talking about the same problems. That Vince McMahon is out of touch and doesn't know what his fans want. And I've read a bunch of things about what's wrong with WWE, and they said, well, it's when they went PG. It's like, even this was when they were not PG, and it was still foolish and dumb. I mean, when they bring back DX a couple months later, it wasn't the DX we liked. It was this DX that Vince thinks, because even at this point in time, they might have been doing blood, but they were still almost PG-like. Because it was almost like they transformed right back into the 80s mentality, because that's what Vince knows. He never really understood the Attitude Era to begin with. He was forced upon him, and he had to do it, or else he would have gone out of business. And this is another moment that shows that WWE hasn't changed since 2006. It went downhill in 2001, and now we're in 2021, and we're still talking about the same things. I mean, God bless AEW for existing, because if we didn't have them, there would be nothing else. There would be New Japan, who not enough people see. It's very frustrating to me to watch these same things, but this promo is great because it laid out everything on the table that was true now, and it was true then. And in a couple of months, they bring back ECW, And they completely dropped the ball on that. Every time they have dropped the ball. And you know what? I'd like somebody to actually interview Vince McMahon when they have it, or interview Stephanie McMahon, and run down the list of the things that they didn't do right, instead of just giving them fluff pieces, or as we'd say, puff pieces. Because that seems to be the only thing they want to do, is they have their ego stroked. From the Peacock thing, now let's talk a little bit about the Peacock situation. It's gotten a little bit better. The one thing that it seems to be the only thing they're really editing is the blackface stuff. Okay, all right, if you want to edit those things, fine. Those things can be edited. As long as they don't touch anything else. And it seems like they haven't touched anything else, and they're getting up the Raw. So, they've actually answered a lot of the questions that I had. If they want to remove the blackface stuff, I'm not for it. But if that's the only thing they're going to touch, okay. I can take that. I can take that win. I can take that. So that's what I've got to say. I know this is a shorter episode, but I've got a WrestleMania episode, and I've got an NXT episode where I'm talking about the NXT takeovers, which I thought were really good. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Will Ospreay as well. But so got a lot of things coming. I've also got the original, the regular DMF, and so a lot of things to cover. But I think this promo is very relevant to today, and it was relevant then, and it just shows. And I feel like a broken record, but I'm saying it again. Nothing's changed, and it's not going to change until Vince leaves. And that's what I've got. That's what I leave you with. So I want to say thank you for listening. As always, you can find me at my handle, @JustinYachts. And I will see you next time on the